Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Sally. Just for coming out for an evening of poetry. I think it's important that we all still gather as human beings during a very troubling time in our country. I'm going to read a few poems from my most recent book, A Promise. It came out in August by Blush. I'll start with the opening poem. A promise. I can make myself look good for you, even as I undergo crisis. I can remove my breasts and place them on a shelf. I can scoop holes out of this melon. I can make such beautiful holes. In summer, I swim breaststroke across a man-made pond and believe in the presence of something bigger. I take the afternoon off to do drugs. I step into a castle. I step into a lake. I step into a lemon tree and entangle myself in branches. I rush skyward to build a permanent home in the sky for you and me. I am exhausted from being touched, blinded by the glittering rocks and leaves of the holy forest, dizzied by the variations in altitude. I make a promise to devote the rest of my life to finding hiding places for the ones I love. My roots run ragged and free. They are not anchored to the ground. Oh, cup of light, I am virtually unsinkable. Dead Star Life. Figure A is in what one would consider a comparable sexual position. Legs overhead, feet flat on the ground, shawled in stars. Figure B is in what one would consider a comparable sexual position. She stares straight into figure A's anus. A line of pearls runs neatly along her spine. Figure C bends over for Earth. She is the least supple of all the figures. Figure C looks past figure B's shoulders and deep into her own hip crevice. Once you are dead, figure C will invite you into her star-filled abode. She will transform into a celestial cow. She will save the earth no matter what it takes. Figure B swallows figure A every night, only to give birth to her again every morning. Figure C is the sky. The death of figure A ensures the survival of figure B. Figure B will ensure that there will be food and wine. Figure C will bring the dead stars back to life inside her body. Welcome to the Dead Star Life. How deep is your forward bend? At what angle is your body most comfortable? Are you more like figure A, B, or C? I'm reading poems I haven't read out loud before. Except the first one. Okay. The carrot that grew in the form of a hand. The carrot that grew in the form of a hand can be found in the garden of the Hand Inn, a place made up entirely of hands. There are vegetable hands and fruit hands, hand cups and hand chairs, hand maidens and hand concierges to lead you to even more hand maidens who provide hand jobs of all kinds. Each hand bears no memory or relation to its original owner. Therefore, they have no personalities or hidden agendas of their own. The only thing we will ever know about these hands is whether they are organic or non-organic, female or male, left or right. Leaning curvature of regret. You can't force the picture into the frame. You can't force the ice down the drain. You can't force the worm into the hole. You can't force the rain into the clouds. You can't force the wind into the pipe. You can't force the ocean into the cup. You can't force the ribs into the cage. You can't force the cup into the ear. You can't force the river into the stomach. You can't force the tongue to lick the ankle. You can't force the gloss into the rain. You can't force the smoke into the flame. Okay. The curious case of the egg that fell from heaven down my throat and into the ocean. Breasts and eggs can spend whole lifetimes in the sky and never fall. A girl drops from the sky at the top of the hour, every hour. The saint of darkness hovers over a herd of lambs. I birth a half-human, half-lamb into an open field. Baptize my child in an enormous tank. Televise and broadcast the baptism on jumbotrons across the country. The most consequential actions in a lifetime are irreversible, like peeing while swimming through holy water to get to the feast. Okay. And we'll close with my apologies. I thought I bookmarked it, but I don't think I did. I'll read a different one because I can't find it. Let's all die together. Let me become your saint, your rival, your spiritual messenger, your Pilates instructor, your physical therapist, your boss, your nurse, your assistant, your other assistant, your suburban housewife, your pathetic sounds, your infatuation, your carnal desire, your housebroken rescue bitch. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Christine, Rachel, and thank you, PSA, Sally. I love them for doing this. So, okay, I'm going to read a few poems. This first one is called TV. It's the procedure of the mind to square away the world. It's a rabbit. It's a sponge. It's an olive without metaphor, and somehow exclusively the active act of pulling. How can I be with you in a moment comprised of so many moments and still move? I try to begin, but find blunder after warm blunder collected around me like a dome, but not one. Oh, wraparound target of the set, ocular readjustment, density in relaxation, raw emphasis in and of itself with the truest thrust of a detonation. If I go into the language of the vision, the problem is what coils and uncoils unerringly around the face of motion, hung on a wall. A headless mouthpiece? No. Standing on the northeast corner of my rug, the image must be inarguable, unable to be interpreted, just be. The mover moves with a mover's nature. A fully defined compass rose comprised of 32 points, azimuths. Finer subdivisions describe fractions of points. At roughly 33 3/4 degrees, the northeast by north edge of the red, black, and gold carpet with white fringes and bloody scenes, lions and leopards bite the necks of deer at jugular impact. Elliot Gould, age 35, now 84, is feeding his cat in 1973's The Long Goodbye. Hey, Dan. This next one is called Bella Notte. It's like the smell of snow charging through the farms around the island, leghorn eggs and aquaculture, other warm commodities. At night, I slenderized into a gondola and toured the bleary couple through the city. The casual canal-side restaurants make us in the morning something new and beautiful to eat. An omelet in the middle of the street? Not if the pavement, spanked with cherry petals, is impassable and freed of direction. The lagoon rocketing with fish, only a thing entangled in its phrasing. I am a freight of other boats, the opposite of traffic, and indifference. Before we met, I was a gondola. I bid the body bye-bye. Grab me by the prow and yank me up. Road work. You hold out your hand again for more world. I wish I could commission one of the great sand painters to tell you about it, to show you in gypsum or in ochre, in pollen, bone fiber, acacia gum, or lead. Seed syllables, shucked from the clouds in an ambient blitz. Night after night, I feel like a theocracy shriveling in the heat. Sweep away the ecclesiastical dust in the street. The sweeper starts on one side of the city. And find me where you left me, awake among the yellow horses spilling from their sidewalk stalls, sidestepping fruit vendors in an inharmonious derby of sugar and gurgles, bolting headfirst into the backlit river where the onlookers look unquestioningly from their glassless windows, their house built of paint, at the alignments of random points in a plane. The rain. It's been interesting. Whole nights roll by without resistance. 2 days go like this: kiss, coffee, backpack, subway, black box, subway, tofu, movie, kiss, black box, kiss, coffee, backpack, subway, black box, subway, tofu, movie, kiss. Let's go to Miami to figure out what mood we're in. Okay, we're in Miami. Why am I not being wowed exactly? A plane drags its ad along the beach. Nobody to. A lantern nailed to a sea grape trunk dangles. Brooklyn again. A woman at a book fair uses a magnetic bow to strum her harp made of magnets. This isn't a book. A barber with scissors in his mouth blows the snippets off my neck to be swept. His first name is my middle name. We've known that about each other, I think, since 2006. Adherents to Impressionism argued it was a different way of seeing. That's pleasant, but what other ways in exist? A maelstrom within each broad stroke of several detailed smaller strokes. So, every question has a yes or a no, even riddles. In the days following winter, but still before spring, I should be patient and not anticipate the rewards of being patient. The jaw snaps open, and a richer vision of the arc emerges. Rain wallops a plastic table on the traffic island. Rain darkens the pavement on the parkway, or a little over half of it. I waded through it like a sound. paintings of bread. I succeeded only in deepening the mystery of why I was there and who I was there to talk to. On the platform, a family asked, "Are you familiar with the trains? We're trying to get to 9/11." Later, I took a meeting in a skyscraper and stuck my hand in the crack of a couch and pulled some money out. Everybody looked at me like I was eating clementines in a pillow fort, like Charles de Gaulle in his personal life. Urgency to live isn't deafening, it's urgent. I tucked your work clothes bursting from the dresser back in, still warm. Later, I drank an orange juice in the bath and watched the dot on the smoke detector redden. Yesterday, in the woody part of the park, I stepped on an orange petal baked into the mud. Looking at petals in the mud is too much like looking at petals, a portrait. Depictions really scare me like paintings of bread. They aren't what they are. At the Musée de l'Orangerie, the door between the water lilies is a pale brick arch with a green light above it. Even the realm containing all other realms left a vent in the wall to let new realms in. Am I on pace for punishment? Look, nothing is so iced shut. In the woody part of the park, holding hands, the skaters scratch the ice over their own shadows. Loss hastens things. This jostles quickly into that. Obstacles disremember what they kept behind their backs. Between them was the finding of things out. This is my last poem. Life World. Really quickly, Delilah makes fun of me for the way that I say orange. I think it's right. Life World. You think it's time? The moon is peanuts compared to the sun, which governs I feel too heavily. I don't build contraptions to solve the city's problems. Monday mornings, I go to the zoo and exhaust myself between the seals and the entrance. A deer with fangs tiptoes its allotment, looking for fruit. What I want, I feel I need. A t-shirt from the bagel restaurant, where a bagel bounces cartoonishly off a tennis racket, serving you all day. Under our blanket, I watch the TV in the apartment across the street. Little orange, little blue. The bedside seltzer flattens. Red digits on the clock radio rearrange. Have you noticed that the number of lines in 4, 5, and 6 matches the numbers themselves? Even 1 has 2. On the train, I texted my boss I was stuck underground. Poor you, boss says. It really is a bummer to be stuck underground. On the train back to Barcelona, I lucked out and saw a wild pig galloping the green behind a car factory. Yesterday, I watched the yellow-green leaves of a Japanese pagoda land between the windshield and hood of a sedan. The divot where the wipers are is called a cowl, like the hood of a monk's sleeveless habit. A habit, I've read, is a cloak bestowed upon a monk at the time of making profession. Time is demanding my profession currently, to be right there, in the way of all of this, among the immaculately confused, to cover the tracks of the mind, the tracks left by my mind. Charlie Brown, you need involvement. On a bench in the train, I can feel the doors disengage behind my back. Is not the soul breaking always the links that hold it to the earth? Besides all that, tonight, will you hold my foot? At home, I count the day's pronunciations of my name. When I get to yours, where the sun at the heart of it unpeels a morning, Gilad, it is so morning, it is early twice. Thank you.
Hi. It's such a joy to be here. Thank you to the Poetry Society. And thank you, Christine and Gilad. That was Amazing. Okay. So I wrote a book. It's called Earth Room, and it sort of tells the story of a relationship. And after the book, I was writing breakup poems and poems about cars and zoos. So I'm going to read some new things, and then I think I'll end with one from the book. This is the car. I practiced driving stick on Ronnie's car. Ronnie owned a shop and had a beater he loaned out. His wife could take it out when she was drinking. Or was it when she wasn't? No, the first time we'd made a plan for me to drive the car, she'd driven it the night before, but drank too much and left it at her friend's responsibly. There was no rule between them. I could drive, had driven stick in high school. I borrowed Ronnie's car to practice so that I could drive in Italy. I could drive, it's just that Chris was better and he liked it more, so it was often Chris who drove, but Chris wouldn't be with me in Italy. Chris was better, I believed, than anyone, but couldn't be with me eventually. I want to take responsibility, to say I made it hard. I only made it hard for him specifically. We disagreed. We made it hard. It was hard to be together. I drove around with the windows down. When I stalled out on a hill, a teen rode by on a bike and said, "Hey, is that Ronnie's car?" Ronnie was the high school friend of a colleague of a friend, but he trusted me. I was like his wife. Chris trusted me. Chris had a car, and when we got together, then we shared the car. When Chris had teletherapy, I'd sit in the parked car and read. We got a second car. The car broke down and couldn't be fixed. We got another car. When we were together, it was often he who drove. But sometimes we drove separately. We drove ourselves to different destinations, to the store. I drove to walk, to go on walks. We had 2 cars. We both could drive. And after he broke up with me, after we broke up, we disagreed about which car belonged to each of us. New Haven. There was a time when we both worked companionably from home. Acre of grass, goats on the property behind us. I made my own coffee now, moved the philodendrons around to different windows. The 3rd floor tenants left for class. Before, when I felt this way, I'd throw myself against his larger body, hear my mind's steady thump. The landlord was installing a new hot water heater, so I didn't shower. From the stoop, I watched a lampshade rolling past. In several hours, I might hear the sound our car made when he checked that it was locked. Little beep. My thoughts, I thought. I don't know what the title of this one is. Connecticut. It's already been published, but there was something I was apologizing for. I couldn't be sure the thing had actually occurred. Weekly, my apology. Weeks becoming years. The apology became rehearsed, was only ever worse. Memory eroded. I reversed, I revised recklessly, I improvised. Each stupid, weak apology erodes the last, the first. I'd never once apologized. This mouth, this empty earth. All right. This poem is about Simone Forti, who's a dancer and movement artist who like snuck into my first book, but then I got more interested in her. This is called Solo Number 1. She begins by walking in circles. Occasionally, her inside arm extends from the elbow out to the side, and she circles like she's circling a post. Now she raises both arms. The right arm stays raised, and the head rests against it, a body attempting to sleep on its side while walking. She drops to the floor. She's crawling. One arm advances, delay before opposite knee. She developed an interest in animal movement in Rome, alone at the zoo. The crawl rises into a walk, big strides, big arms, then lowers again to a crawl, lowers further, arms reaching longer, dirty feet, more lateral movement of spine. She's not a specific animal. She's watched the animals moving and been married twice. She stands. She raises one arm at a time. At the museum in Turin, she secretly kissed a sarcophagus. She went back to do it again. Big roll of head. She falls down to crawling. The head swings side to side. This swinging she learned from a bear. My dream, she wrote, that I'm saved, that I'm a witch, will not come true. She's not a bear. She returns to walking, bipedal, familiar, her left arm out with elbow bent, like leading a donkey who can't move. All right. I'm going to read one more little zoo poem, and then I'm going to read one from the book. A lesson. I came at feeding time. The orangutan accepted food through a grate, like those the cloistered nuns would sit behind in church. Cucumber, tomato, chunks of purple cabbage, beet. The animal arranged these items on the floor. She shoved them all away. She took her one tomato to the hayloft. She pushed the seeds out between her teeth. The man I loved, he didn't mean caged like trapped. He meant there was always someone watching him eat. All right, now we're gonna travel back in time to, and this is just the first poem in the book. It's called The Moon. I'd never experienced virtual reality, nor I soon felt had I ever experienced anything so dazzling and hateful at once. The VR installation was called To the Moon. It accommodated 2 museum visitors at a time, and I'd made the appointment so we could go together. With my headset in place, the room was still there, but my body disappeared. The stool where Chris had sat beside me was there, but Chris was gone. Then the room was gone, and I was alone on the moon. The feeling of transport was real, and the feeling of space. But the attendant had promised flying. Just extend your arms, and it didn't feel like flying. It felt crushingly like I was missing out on a major part of the moon experience. There were ghostly dinosaurs on the moon. There was a giant solitary rose made out of moon rock and a donkey that I rode along the surface of the moon. I came to the edge of a crater and wanted to jump, but this was a passive section of the experience. What did you see on the moon? I demanded as we left, but Chris was experiencing nausea. He'd had a bad cold that week, and I'd been thinking about his death. And now the aftershock of my abandonment on the moon left me weeping. What did you see on the moon? The attendant went in behind us to wipe down the headsets to welcome the next guests. I was angry because this all felt like a vision of the future. But maybe that's how people felt when we landed on the moon. Chris and I had both been granted residencies at the museum for our writing, Impossible Luck, and over the days had freely walked through galleries that required no appointment. But with Chris's illness, we'd been sleeping in separate rooms, then going to our separate studios, and now our separate moons, Chris flying and swooping so dramatically you could vomit, while I stayed down on the ground. That's how it was sometimes, living with another poet. Like we could both put on our headsets and wave the controllers, arms outstretched and triggers depressed, but for me alone, nothing happened. People say that poets love the moon, but I got into poetry because I liked words and small things and lacked the imagination for fiction. There's a book my dad would read us about a princess who falls ill and won't be well until they bring the moon. It's hopeless. But then someone asks what she thinks the moon might be. A disk of gold, no bigger than her thumbnail. So then, quite achievable. But what will happen when, moon in hand, she sees the moon still in the sky? It's fine. In her cosmology, the moon grows back like a tooth. The book is called Many Moons. Outside my studio window, dirty snow is piled up around a pool of ice. When I arrived, it was liquid, but it will be an ice rink soon. I've seen them work. They hose it down to smooth it. Now it's night. Two men climb into cars on either side. Their headlights meet across the ice. Now two visitors approach on foot, tenderly and not with their full weight. With 1 foot each, they test the ice. The moon is far away for all to see. I'm imagining the poems Chris will write. Thank you.